Welcome to Panda Head Studios. Now that you're here, don't forget to join the Panda Force by hitting that subscribe button. Today we're talking about Vivy Fluorite I's Song episodes 1 and 2.
So for episodes 1 and 2, the reason we're doing them together is they were released together and they flow one right into the other very well and create a cohesive, basically intro to this show. And it opens up with this really cool scene that takes place 100 years in the future. And then we backtrack 100 years to being introduced to Vivy, also known as Diva. Diva is her actual name, but she gets called Vivy. And the episodes really take place around her and this AI from the future, Matsumoto, really interacting and learning about each other and getting to know each other. And Matsumoto really trying to get her to change these particular events that are about to happen so that they can in turn change the future and they can prevent this war from breaking out. And we get, introduced to Vivy, then introduced to Matsumoto, and then we get introduced to this assemblyman, which is basically the first major event that they have to change is saving him from ending up dead, because he's trying to pass this thing called the AI naming law, which would give AI human rights, which, according to Matsumoto, is one major factor in causing the events in the future. And the two episodes, I think, do really good job of introducing us to these characters and getting us a really good sense of who they are. And it's just the show, I will say right off the bat, tons and tons of fun and very, very good.
Oh, absolutely. It was I enjoyed every minute of it. I the first part, the very opening of the show, is one of the best scenes that really hooks you really well. And it's something that Terminator, the first Terminator and the second Terminator did really well. And the way it starts out with this really awesome scene where you're seeing all these people being massacred in a theme park, and all the robots that are in there just killing them, and one's like a float from a parade. It's like this unicorn, and these other robots that are helping people are just killing them, and all these people that they're dressed. They obviously are the employees or something of that nature, and everyone's just being massacred. and And I just love how that looks, because there's this really great scene where this robot walks up to this woman. Are you in need of assistance? And then she grabs her face and just crushes it.
Yeah.
And you think she's gonna help her, and she just murders her. And I just love how that how they're showing that these robots, that they depict these robots as still robots, that they're following some sort of programming, but something has happened within them, even though they have an AI and there's clearly something more to them. And then how it ends too is it's one of the best kinds of ironies you can see,
Yeah.
where there's a robot that's performing a song and dancing on a stage, and telling everyone, let's get fired up, to an audience of corpses that are on fire.
Yeah. It's so
I love that scene.
it's so good. I loved it. And after that, we do get a brief intro with this scientist that sends the AI into the past, but it picks up after all of that with us getting introduced to a brief explanation of what AI are and sort of their motivate, really what they are. And you get sort of a brief history on them, and it's very succinct, very clear, and I think does a really good job of defining AI for this world. Because they talk about how AIs at one point had what they refer to as missions. At first, AI were created with multiple missions, and but for whatever reason, the AI, when they had multiple missions, couldn't complete any of them. But if they were given one directive, one mission, they were able to do that job. And what's really nice about it, like I love how succinct it is and how clear it is, and then we get a proper
And they do a
introduction.
good job of showing you what the issues are too.
Yes, and we get then we get introduced to Vivy proper, and throughout like the beginning, there's this song that's playing, and this person singing, and it turns out it is in fact Vivy that was singing that song, and we basically get introduced to her wrapping up the song, and she does this like funny little idol pose, and we get in, and she ends up talking to this little girl who is basically her friend, and because like a few months ago Vivi ended up helping her out, which we find out is just Vivi following programming, but the little girl's like, oh, you're so kind, you're so nice. And it's this really like heartwarming scene. What I loved about this, and actually it took me a minute to realize it, is while that scene is taking place, there's this thing that pops up in like the upper left corner of the screen, which is basically like a GPS, like it's Singularity Project, and then it's got like a GPS coordinate, and then current GPS coordinate, and then like execution time, and then current time. And when those two things, or when all of that lines up, Vivi all of a sudden like starts getting flashes of the future and then collapses.
Then she's in like a weird dream world
Archive.
archive, and then a voice starts talking to her, and she immediately assumes it's a virus, and it's actually the other AI, Matsumoto. He tells his real name. It's a weird number thing.
Yeah, so like all the AIs have a serial number and then their code name. And he starts to introduce it and just says, you know what? I'll just take on my creator's moniker and you can just call me Matsumoto.
And he talks really fast and he explains everything really quickly, and it's kind of difficult to understand him. And I really commend the Japanese voice actor for how fast he can actually deliver the lines and still have them very clear.
Yeah.
And he is so snarky and so funny. And it's really like it's almost like an adult talking to a child and trying to slowly break down his points and what he's saying, and how he's explaining to her he's from the future, and how he slowly persuades her into believing, because of course immediately at first she thinks it's a virus, then she doesn't even believe that he's from the future. And I just like the banter they have, and what it's so great. And then he ends up possessing a little teddy bear, and then tells her that there's the assemblyman is about to be assassinated, and and that's how he like convinces her to go and like go do something other than just sing.
Yeah.
It's see, here's proof I'm from the future. Go stop this event. There's a bomb here, and they planted a bomb, and and of course she's gonna go check it out because she's got to protect the park too.
Yeah.
And I love how he says, "Oh, that's happening in like 7 minutes,
7 seconds."
or 7. You can make it in time."
Yeah. With you taking your speed into account, you can make it, but just barely. So it's not like he gives her time to do, all she has time to do is react to this, is to react and then go save this man. And specifically, it's an assemblyman who's visiting the park because he's the one that's promoting the AI naming law. And it's so much fun because like she ends up having to run and save him. And then
duck his bodyguards, tackle to grab
yeah,
one of the bodyguards and the assemblymen so they both don't get blown up.
Exactly, yeah. And after the explosion happens, they have a brief conversation, and then the park AI have to go and like basically inspect the rest of the park for any potential suspicious packages or anything wrong. And Vivi ends up going to main stage, and she's checking it out and runs a diagnostics on everything, and it turns out that there's nothing wrong, there's nothing there, and she's told to be on standby there, and it's her and Matsumoto, because Matsumoto basically runs around in the bear form the whole time now.
Yeah, and how what he said, he explains to her, he shows her, he explains to her like the whole, it breaks down the future that they're going to be in, and literally shows her that massacre you saw in the beginning, and she's standing in the stadium, or the main stage, on fire, And then whenever they show her, the stadium looks normal, and whenever they show him, there's the stadium's on, or the stadium, the main stage is on fire, and I just love that parallel where she's like where it's showing you like that the different place and time, even their mentalities.
Yeah.
Like there's so much being said with that, and and they're showing it very well. It's very easy to interpret all that information, and just how their conversation just carries on. And like I said, he just is convincing her like he's convincing a child. And if you think about he essentially explains how advanced of an AI, because he's from 100 years in the future.
Yep.
And he defines more of like the differences between like what kind of like what her future entail, like what the future is for her, and how he's so much more advanced. And I just love that, like how he explains everything, 'cause it's so well done.
Yeah. And I love how like after they have that parallel conversation, is he shows her like this event that's supposed to take place in 1 year, which is basically a remembrance of the assemblyman, because he ends up getting killed at some point. And you get to see these humans and these AIs standing together and rallying together. And of course, because of that, and other assemblymen not wanting this individual to basically have died in vain, they end up supporting and passing this AI naming law, which Matsumoto outright states is a key factor in the causing the war that's about to break out, or not about to, but the war that breaks out in 100 years. And he basically is like, look, we got to go, we have to go prevent his death. And of course, that's happening that night, because he is not one for, giving her time to figure a way out of, not necessarily figure out a way out of helping, but figuring out a better way to save him. She has to be very reactive to everything he tells her.
Like that's where the first episode ends, with her basically saving or coming in to save the assemblymen from the assassins, and it's like you release it as a two-parter. Why'd you have a cliffhanger ending? Because you immediately pick it up in the second episode.
Yeah, I do. That is one thing I will sort of gripe about this, is I really wish they had released this as like a 1 hour first episode. And it's not like it's unheard of for anime to do that. They've done it in the past. There are shows that their first episode is like basically an hour long, or 48 minutes if you take out the ads and whatnot. But like it's not unheard of for anime to have a longer first episode. So I do agree with you. It doesn't make sense, like especially since the second episode is following through with that. It shows that like the second episode literally shows that brief eulogy scene, or remembrance scene, and then it's her in the building trying to save him, and sort of all these things, taking him and running away from this like extremist group that's like anti-AI.
And they look really stupid.
They do. They really do.
They look like the Red Eyes from Mystery Men.
Oh my God, you're right. That didn't occur to me. You're right. They kind of do. And it's really like the bulk of the beginning of that episode is them like running through the halls and stuff, and Matsumoto like partially taking over different parts of the building to give them like clear pathing. And also like Vivy ends up in a struggle with one of these extremists, and Matsumoto's like, this is taking too long, and sends like 3 little like cleaner drones to like
I call them Roombas.
Yeah, they're essentially Roombas to tackle this dude. And he tries to
They're like kicking him too. Like I love that. Ramming into him while he's like curled up in the fetal position and getting beat by him.
by Roombas. Yeah, it's great. And Matsumoto at one point tries to forcibly download combat data into Vivy, and Vivy, does not allow that to happen. She throws him on the ground, and they have this conversation about the fact that like She's concerned that if he downloads this information, it's going to affect her singing program, which she doesn't want because her mission is to make everyone happy via song and singing her heart out. And Matsumoto is very cold and calculated in it and is like, that's irrelevant to the mission. Like, what matters is saving this assemblyman and preventing his death, you know. And we, throughout all of this, like, one, we find out that Matsumoto has been like hacking into these goggles everyone's wearing to force them to see certain things.
A really awesome scene that I knew that didn't fool me for a second.
Didn't fool me, but it's still great nonetheless. And like, he's also talking down, like, this is really when we see him talk down to her, because up until now, like, he has talked down to her, but like you said, the way you would a child. This is the first time he outright
starts ripping on her.
He starts ripping on her and is like, your mission is pointless and irrelevant. Like, going to main stage doesn't matter. Preventing this war is what matters. You know,
and she's like actively hurt and basically tells him to take it back. Like a child. Yeah. Take that back.
And it's so good.
Because I love how she's trying to sing from her heart. That's like one of the conflicts that they introduce in her. She's trying to sing from her heart, but she doesn't know what that means. When she literally wears her heart on her sleeve, that's what's so endearing about her interaction with the kid. And like that moment right there, where she tells him off, it's so endearing because she's like, she is singing, like has that passion. She truly is.
She has that passion. She just doesn't understand how to convert that passion into song.
Which she's just hitting perfect notes.
It's still very good, but there is sort of that disconnect. Like, if you listen to actual musicians, but like, even if you listen to actual musicians, like, you can tell when they have a passion for a song, and then when they wrote the song because it fits the theme of the CD or something. Like, there's still very good songs, but there are times where you really get a better sense of the artist in this song rather than that song. Not that song isn't good or well done, but there's sort of that.
Oh yeah, that's what they say. I'm in a different camp. I'm a musician, and I'm in a totally different camp in that logic of like, if it sounds good, it sounds good, and if it fits your voice, it fits your voice. I think it's absolutely silly. I've heard so many people, they have no emotion in their voice, and I'm like,
oh, I'm not saying they don't have.
No, I know. I'm just saying. Like, it feels like it comes from that school of thought of like, you're hitting the notes perfectly, but you don't have emotion behind it. I'm like, it sounds good.
Sorry,
that's what's important. I go and see a garage band at a bar. I want to be just as entertained as when I go and see a band at a main stage.
Yes,
I just want to see them playing from their hearts and really doing well. Because I've seen people that are trash. I've been that. I've cleared out rooms.
Yeah.
I've been her. I know how she feels. I've seen where there's 3 people and then nobody shows up to the next show. Like, I know how that feels, and it's like you can still be playing from your heart and not and have an empty stage. Or an empty audience.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't like a lot of these people that are in like professional or they're just very knowledgeable, expertise and whatever. Like they'll talk like that, and I'm like, it really feels like it's coming from an egotistical ideology rather than an actual like literally this sounds good. This is in key. This is on note. This is in time. What do emotions have to truly do with that? Like people say, oh, there's emotion to it. When I listen to a song, when I listen to Celine Dion, this is what I will always love you. I don't feel emotional about that. I feel annoyed, like I want to go bury myself in a hole and cry myself until I die. But if I listen to song like the music in this show, I'm moved. I'm genuinely touched by how beautiful the lyrics are and the notes that they've chosen to accompany the music or the songs that she's singing.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I have like
no.
It's just that kind of stuff in that. It's like a frustrating ideology. It's like philosophy spawn.
Yeah.
But that's why the show is so good.
It really is. And Vivy ends up saving him by sort of looking at the images that Matsumoto had given her and realizes that, oh, we can, if we go up to the roof, we can jump to the next building, and they do so.
Oh, because they blow up, they actually activate because
Yeah, Matsumoto had prevented the bombs from going off, and when they're running up, Matsumoto reactivates them so that they can blow up in a.
Vivi had the idea to do it. That's something I think is so important. How she can think on the fly in such creative ways.
Yeah, especially since Matsumoto's idea was go deal with the extremists that are out front, so we can just go through the front door. And she's like, nope, we're going to do this.
And he's like, there could be other people in the building. Nope, that's an empty building. It's an autonomous building. And I'm just like, this is awesome. Like, how he doubts her, and he didn't see as much as she saw.
Yeah.
And I love how she's independent. Like, she is her own person. She truly is like this artificial intelligence.
Yeah. And there's a brief sort of wrap-up scene with the three of them where, like, the big thing for that is, like, Vivi's sort of questioning why saving him somehow prevents the bill from passing. And, like, there is a brief scene that sort of backs up what Matsumoto says, where he's like, oh, the assemblyman's a weak-willed man. He doesn't have the charisma or the character to really carry that bill himself to completion. And we really get, like, what backs that is when they're in the building, like, he ends up having this breakdown where he's like, I shouldn't have been chasing votes. Like, we really find out the only reason he's doing this is to chase votes.
Being a politician.
Yeah. And then the scene, like, immediately cuts to, well, it doesn't immediately, like, there is a brief scene where, like, Matsumoto and Vivy have this, like, sort of heart-to-heart conversation where they do, in fact, agree to work together. And Vivy finally agrees to help him with his mission, so in far that it doesn't impact her own. And then it cuts to Matsumoto controlling a construction robot, like, beating the snot out of Vivy. And like, smacking her around and, like, smacking her through this, like metal door,
and knocking her arm off.
And the entire reason is because Vivi's at this airport, and she's trying to prevent this plane crash from happening, because one of the people that dies on that plane crash is the little girl that is her friend.
And she saw all this in a news article when she was looking through all that information, and she sees the death list, and it, like, focuses on who she is.
Yeah. It's so good. And I
actually felt bad. Normally I have no emotional connection to any of this stuff.
Yeah, and I love Matsumoto in that moment, because, like, for me, he came across really cold-blooded, because he's like, and he does have a logical standpoint to it, in the fact that he's not supposed to drastically change the future.
This whole mission isn't to drastically change the future.
Exactly.
They just wanted to kill a little girl for the hearts.
Yeah.
Or the feels, sorry.
For the feels. And
good job.
Yeah, it's a great job. Because and, like, I love his lines about the fact that there are inconsequential events that will happen that changing them wouldn't even affect the future anyways. Like I get it, he's logical about it, but he also chooses very cold words.
Yeah, she could have been the next John Connor. I'm going to stand and fight.
But then that's where the show ends. It's her watching the plane crash and watching the parts flow, and they do a really good scene with her eye where it's reflecting it's so good. I love the animation right there. And not that I don't like, I love the animation in this whole thing. I think the Studio Wit has blown it out of the park on this one. Like their animation direction is great. The animation team, I think, has done a great job.
Voice actors.
Yeah, the voice actors and actresses are great. The writers have been fantastic. The musical direction is great. Like, I love the music throughout this whole thing. Like, the background music, the ending themes, like the musical pieces and the composition, for me, I loved so much.
Well, and I loved the variety where they had, like, her style is more of like this J-pop, where they, like, you'll see, like, the VR, or not VR, but the hologram of, like, characters that are singing, like, pop songs and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like that. And normally I'm not a big fan. And I'm like, this sounds awesome. The lyrics are great. And then they have like classical music and just this wide or classical style, like all this wide style of music with all this elaborate composition. And I'm just like, I was just so dumbfounded, and it really melted. And a lot of scenes where it was there, it really melted away into the scenes and just had you feeling the feelings that it inspires, and you don't notice it's there, which is actually the best. Which is the craziest part is like you don't know you notice it's there, but you don't, and that's how it's so good. Where other times it's really off-putting and like why are you? I can't hear the dialogue.
Yeah, that is very true. And this show has been especially these two episodes are fantastic, and I couldn't recommend watching them enough to anybody.
Yeah, watch it now and wait for more to come out. It's totally worth it. And
Yeah. Like actually the third episode is out right now, which we're about to go watch.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed that, and let us know down in the comments what you thought of Vivy's first two episodes. And while you're there, don't forget to hit that like button, and now that you're part of the Panda Force, hit that bell icon for future orders.
If you're interested in joining us gaming, check us out on Twitch. In fact, we are currently running together every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're playing Ark Survival Evolved. And for updates, check us out on Twitter. The links are in the description down below.